Hello, World Wide Web. This is Laz from LazTaz with a capital T here, bringing you an episode of Kerbal Space Program. Now, I'm starting here on the main sort of KSP base site to cover a few things that I didn't mention last time, like how all the planets here you can land on except for one or two exceptions, and that there are various things and many things you can do with this game. Now I'm going to go here into the command, or the tracking station, and here we start with Kerbal, and I can point out that we are right there. That is the entire space center right there, and this whole world takes forever to cover, but just by itself, not to mention everything else you see. So if we scroll out a little bit, I'll do this from a top-down view, you'll see the moon. Focus here. We get a nice little rivet of it. It does look like the actual moon, and a hotkey for this is you just kind of press tab, and then here's our next planet, which is Minmus. It's sort of the second moon around the Kerbal system. It's much farther out, but it does have a lower gravity, about 1/12 size of Kerbals. And for the next one, we are focused on the planet Duda, which is the representation of Mars here. It does look pretty much like Mars, and if you land on it, there are a lot of Easter eggs, like the Martian face is on here. It's somewhere. And then when you go to its moon Ike, which has little to almost no gravity, our next spot is Dres, which is quite a ways out. If I just kind of zoom out and start seeing its orbit, it's way out here. Inside we have the Eve, Moho, and the Sun, which is supposed to be Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. We have this little planet out here, and then we have Jewel. And the thing with Jewel is it has a lot of moons, like Lathe, which is the almost completely water moon. It's very interesting when you have like the mod that puts you on different planets and you test out a bunch of boats. Our next one is Val. It's an ice-covered planet. Then you have Tylo. It's barren and dusty. And then you have Bop, which is this little meteor, which kind of represents the little meteor that Jupiter caught quite a while ago. Actually, in my parents' lifetime, they caught it. And then we have Pole, which is this dusty, little hard-to-land-on planet. The next one we have is the newest planet in this line, but they've all been released for quite a while, which is Elu. It is by far the farthest planet out in the system. If I just kind of keep scrolling out, we'll see that here we are. Here's Elu. And if we look at the third dimension, Elu's not exactly the same as everyone else's, which kind of makes it a little hard. Then we have the Sun, of course. And then we have Moho, which is the same representation of Mars, or Mercury. Eve, which has a very little atmosphere, and lakes made of mercury. And then its moon, Gilly, which is just pretty much this rock thing where the supposed Kerbal Kraken lies. The way of all the game's bugs and things is blamed by the Kerbal Kraken coming alive. And then we're back to Earth. So that's a little tour of all the planets and things. You can't land on mention that, but it is a gas giant. The other thing I'm going to cover is how to make a space plane properly that won't die and crash. So I'll start with the preset, the Ares 3 Ice, which is a stock plane that developers make. It's a nice little plane, and if we look here at the center of mass and the center of lift, this little yellow dot is the center of mass. This little blue dot is your center of lift. And these are the little winglets. I'm just pointing stuff out now. Here's your jet engine. And the key to making a good space plane is having your center of thrust, this purple, line up with the blue in the second dimension. And then having the blue a little bit behind the yellow, black and yellow dot, which is what makes for a very key plane. And then you have your control surfaces, which is your pitch, yaw, and roll. you're always going to want to have these little flaps here. In this part, you're going to want to have those be your pitch and roll. And then these are going to be all three if they can. And you're pretty much going to want to have all your bases covered. And the thing with the basic jet engine, there's one other, the turbojet engine and the aerospike, is that they all require this little air intake, which is sometimes a pain in the butt. Thanks to the new update, you actually can get these structural intakes, which are they're straight and streamlined, and they're actually quite easy to just flap on there. You're good to go. So we fly this plane. Here we are. So what I normally do is I start by not doing any of this stuff. So I usually start with the brakes, is because the basic jet engine and the turbojet engine, they require some kind of warm-up system, which does take a little bit of a while. I usually start off on the full throttle with these, and it'll take it a second to warm up. As you see, the particles there, and once it starts jetting forward a little bit, I let go of the brakes, and it'll start taking off rather quickly. So I believe at 100 meters per second, this will start taking off. Yep, there it goes. Track the gear, and then you have yourself a working jet. If we look up here, oops, come back here. Our air intake, which is from the structural intake and the radial air intake, will only work up to about right at that little line, which is where the atmosphere ends and actual oxygenless space begins. So if I just kind of radically climb up there, just kind of keep going, you can watch this little bar go down as the intake from the airs go down. And I will mention that the turbojet and the basic jet engine are very fuel efficient. They require almost no liquid oxygen, as you see here, 0.9 just to run this one engine. And if we just if you look at these little winglets, you'll see them move as I move the ship. And something cool you can do is by pressing Q and E, you can perform an avian's roll, which is you just turn it around its center point of axis. It's a fun little maneuver. And one of the other Easter eggs you can find on Kerbal, which is like a total of 16, is that there's this little abandoned space base that you can go to, and you can actually, in some mods, you can launch from there. The runway is about probably a tenth of this size, so it's really tiny, and it's for mainly the skilled pilots to go to. But it is a place you can go to. As you see, its model loading right about there, and then you can see the curvature of the Earth. There's the peak and mountains, and if we go to the map view, this little blue line is my line of travel, and the Apoapse is the highest point you're going to reach at that current orbit. So the way I'm climbing right now is I'm going to go about 20,000 meters up, 21, in about 40 seconds. I just cut off the engine and let it go. You see air intake slowly depleting, slowly going away, and I'm going a little slower every time. It's down to about 0.5. The structural one's going to go first because it doesn't have as much surface area for the wind to strike. So once that one goes, the radial air intake's going to take a little bit longer, and then it's just going to die. And if we watch you're going to see it kind of just say, it's going to say flame out once this reaches 0. So it's very fuel efficient, as you see by the fuel flow. And then wait for that last little bit right at that line of the atmosphere. I'll just wait for this to go. And then flame out right there. Air intake deprived. So I now have no thrust. But I'm going to reach about 37,000, no, 36, 38. What is happening now? Oh, Why? Okay. Okay. Whatever. So I'm gonna reach about 38,000 meters, and then, as the blue line says, I'm gonna drop into the ocean area because the Kerbal does rotate while you're in space, and then there's these little islands, and then I'm gonna go up, and since I'm in space or the orbit mode, it shows you your retrograde vector, your decircularization vector, your prograde vector, or that's your retrograde, and then your circularization orbit, or your circularization vector, and there's also your plane change vectors, which are for the more complicated, don't want to do by the book. But if I change the surface, you'll notice this because it's relative to the actual surface of Kerbal as opposed to the orbital velocities of Kerbal. And if I just kind of time warp, and as I keep speeding up, I'll slip back under this line again, and then I will have control again. See, as the air intake's going back up. So I'm just going to keep into a steep dive as I go down. And there's also flame offense. I'm still on time warp, that's fine. As I'm reaching past Mach 1, which is why there's these sonic boom waves. And there's space programs there. So what I can do is, using this, I can turn using all three of my vectors. Kind of just turn around, or not. Come on, turn around, little plane. And this one. If I had Ferrum Aerospace, I'd completely be stalling it. One of the toughest mods for this game is Ferrum Aerospace because it actually adds a more realistic Earth-like atmosphere into the game, which is incredibly hard to deal with. Even as you see now, this is hard to drive, and I don't even have to deal with the stalling of parts and other basic aerodynamic principles. So it's a little bit of a pain to drive. Just kind of up here on Kerbal, but I think I've got it stabilized as a nice gentle altitude. It'll stay nice to me. And as you see, we've got quite a ways to go until we're back at the Space Center. So if I just keep aiming at it, keep my level of horizon flat, like my prograde vector where I want to go. Also, another cool thing is that I can take his spot and actually pretty much fly the plane, which is really cool because this game does work with the Oculus Rift, the virtual reality helmet, and your mouse is actually controlled by looking around the screen with the peripherals and things. So you have your life support down there. The cool thing is that this throttle actually does work, which is really cool. Then you have your altimeter gauges and all your other various devices that you require while you're flying a plane. So you can turn your SAS on and off. Press C to get out of that. And just kind of cruise along. Time warp a little bit. You'll notice that the air intake is affected by that, because this game is still rather buggy. Alright, so I'm gonna want to slow down, and I'm gonna want to watch my velocity going downward, my vertical velocity, as opposed to my horizontal velocity, which is this. As you see, it's slowing down, which means I'm slowing down. So I'm gonna want to keep this at around 10, maybe 20 meters per second rating, or going up, as this is falling because of gravity and stuff. At this point, I usually put my landing gear down. See, there's that runway again, and we'll keep coming down. Well, I'm not lined up exactly. No. Nope. Okay, so So coming down rather sharp. I should line up a little more with this. Oops. Nope. 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 Plane, do not be buggy. I do not like buggy planes. So if I aim down and curve a little bit now, I should be able to land this thing. Let us go down. But not crash, hopefully. So let's keep with the same plane as the horizon. We're going to be noticing our horizontal speed. Oh, I'm just going to miss that. That's good. That's aggravating. See if I can make it. Nope, I don't think so. Well, anyway, this will be how to land a plane. If... Oh, I'm curved too much. Come on, this way. Oh, good, good, good. Maybe able to do this anyway. So let's go down. No, cut engines first off, which is my first mistake. And then you're gonna want to come down slower than that. I am your flail. Kill off your vertical speed. You're gonna want to kill off your surface speed. And then slowly creep closer to the ground. And as you're getting closer, I so would have land. You're gonna want to hit that and smash your brakes. And then I totally would not have gotten it on the runway by itself. And then that's how you land a plane. That's pretty much just the basics of... What's this? Oh, that's cool. I didn't notice that before. There's a ladder on here. Then you can do EVA for your little peeps to get out. Space to let go. And then let's drop down here. And let's do an EVA report. Wasn't completely necessary. And let's flatten the flag. Site name, where to land a plane the first time. And then we'll leave that there as we just kind of grab onto this. We'll go up, back in. We'll go up and back into the cabin. Okay. Jump. We'll go up and you know what? Forget it. Cover the vessel. Staying here. Because it's a lot harder to deal with them when they're on landing things. And then there's Jebediah Carbon. If we look over here, one of the cool fancy features is we see our plane here. We can recover it from here. And then there's the flag he planted. One cool thing is I'm actually going to build my own spaceship now. Okay, so I'm back. I made the most fearsome plane that a man could ever. This plane puts all others to envy. I call it Plane Runner. Here it is. That's Plane Runner. His nickname's Bob. Let's go see how he flies. I've done a few tests with him, and he does fly pretty well. Rough. And by rough, I can explode it. I can take it off. But isn't that all that really matters, is when you can take things off? And so basic same procedure. I do have a turbojet engine, some wings, some control surfaces. I didn't use any of the radial. I used the radial intakes. Didn't use any of those flat ones because I was having trouble with them. And I mean, it kind of looks like it has a lion's mane now. It's kind of cool. So if we just kind of fire the engine, take off the brake. I'm going to challenge myself, and I'm going to see if I can take off from here. This should end. I don't know how this is actually going to end. I've never tried this. And go up. Mr. Plane, go. Come on. Don't be camera shy, Mr. Plane. Plane runner, what are you doing? Plane runner. Really close to the lights, plane runner. Ooh, I did it! Cool! So let's retract some of the gear and go up. We don't want to go down by that vertical speed indicator over there. We're going up to about 10 meters per second. Our altitude is slowly climbing. And let's just kind of hopefully aim for the moon. Okay, I don't know what that gauge is. Is that my G-forces? No, that's something over elsewhere. Alright, so I'm in a stable climb. This does take off rather well. Like I said, landing's a bit of a problem. But the main specs of this plane is that I have this Elvin 1, which controls all three of the surfaces, which could have been done simpler by just reducing it to 2. I have these SEPT wings holding those on there. And then I have the Mark 1 crew patch, not the super high-tech fancy one. I have a turbojet engine on here. I tried to make an SSTO, which is a single-stage orbit, which basically in turns means that it's a rocket engine like this one that actually can switch from just running on liquid fuel to running on both of them, like a regular regular jet engine. And it switches to a rocket engine once you reach the threshold of the atmosphere. So you can actually, what you can do is you can take off here, and in theory you could fly out to Elu, which I said was the farthest plane out there if you had infinite fuel, or if you had enough fuel, or if you had a rocket. And a lot of these planes, you could do that. You could fly a plane to Joule, any of the planets with atmosphere, which are Dres and Eve and Kerbal. Not very many planets with atmosphere. Tylo has an atmosphere, I believe. Yeah, it has water, it has an atmosphere. So I'm just gonna kind of have it do some sick tricks, and then I'm gonna leave it off there, like a nosedive, or turning. Turning works as well. And let's plummet. Plummet straight to the ground, or water. Let's see if I can get this thing up here. Straight dive. So, a little more. There's our dive, and let's go back up. Come on, don't die. You're gonna die. You're so gonna splash. And splash. Well, that was an interesting little experiment there. For the space tour, that was everything you can do here. That was basics of building airplanes, and if it's wanted, or if I want to, I feel like I'm wanting to do an actual career mode playthrough of Kerbal. So I think I'm going to do that, which will unlock the mission control and the administration building, which I've never dealt with, but it's got a pool, so it can't be too bad. It's got a nice little pool. And it also unlocks everything, and I'll try and make it up to the moon. But I think that's, like I said, that's where I'm going to end it, and I'll see you all later.